everyone, and welcome to AC Spotlight. And joining me today is Zari, GM of Rise of the Ordning. Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
It's so good to see you again. For those who don't know, probably don't know, but we've talked before. I love it.
We have. Mm-hmm.
Zari, I have a question for you. When you run your games, do you prefer music tracks or ambience?
A little bit of both. So I actually, I use tabletop audio for like the majority of my stuff because as somebody who's streaming, you have to be very worried about copyright strikes constantly. So they're phenomenal. Shout out to them. Absolutely not sponsored, but they do a lot of just like plain ambiance, but then also have a lot of like music plus ambiance, which is phenomenal. So I also have been recently working with a private indie artist who we're going to hopefully be featuring some of their music soon. So I'm very excited for that. But I kind of use a combination. I am a music person. Actually, my degree's in music. And so I have to have music going constantly. So that is a thing. And the times that I don't have music are intentional.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're setting the mood. They're definitely, I agree, there definitely is moments where things can be quiet and there can be ambience. Maybe there's some like night sky crickets chirping. And I seem to find that whenever there is like some intense moments, music seems to fit very well. No, I see that. Yeah, there's moments in stories where either or can work or both can be collaborative and work together at once.
Very much so. So I, at the very least, I like to have some sort of like half ambiance is what I call it. So the people I was talking about do a lot of what I call looped music. So it's like it's the mixture between ambiance and music, in my opinion, if you like want to classify it, but that's what they kind of classify it as. So yeah.
Well, you dropped this down faster than I did, and that was the mention of this is obviously for your actual play channel. Do you mind telling us more about Rise of the Ordning?
Absolutely. So a little bit about this. I have been building this world for a couple of years, and this world stemmed from the idea of doing a guild system. And I very specifically wanted to do a guild system. The original idea, this is going to be a little cute. I eventually know that my future family, when I have children, are going to all be super into TTRPGs. My fiance is very into it. And so before I even met him, mind you, was like, this is what my life's going to look like in the future. I know it. I know that this is what's going to happen. And so I'm going to build a world that in the future of the world, my children can run through and do a mini campaign style where there's this guild system that's populated with all of their characters and their friends' characters, and they go on mini campaigns and mini arcs, and then eventually there'll be some story thread when they're old enough to like understand it, and then in the end there'll be like an end campaign big thing fight thing that they can pull whatever characters they want. And so that was the original concept. And so I went, okay, let's back it up. How do I start that? And what ended up happening is I used that mini campaign style and turned it into what is now my business. So Muse's Mythos is my business. And so I can run mini campaigns in that world. And so we are in the early era of Illumiland. I actually started at conceptualization and ran a level 20 plus one-shot with 8 characters that started the whole world. It was crazy. It was really fun. And then I started at like year 15 and now we're at like year 300 something. And so I've been running mini campaigns in this world for a while to kind of just like set up and experiment with the guild system. And then was like, I want to run a main campaign that I showcase. That is online, that is like a full story. However, I want to be working on finishing a lot of the world building stuff because I personally don't world build the full world to every little pixel. I'm like a sketch around, and then as characters come in, they can influence a lot of different things. So it's more of interactive and collaborative storytelling, which is one of my main focuses. So I know that was a really rambly response, but that's where Rise of the Ordinance came from. And so I was like, as I'm building this world and as I'm developing the second era, which I'm working on the mini campaigns and the campaigns for that, I don't want to run a homebrew campaign. And this was a really hard choice for me because I am primarily a homebrewer. All of my mini campaigns are homebrew. Even when I like run pre-written stuff, I completely adapt it. And so I was like, what sounds fun? Giant sound. And I went and looked into Storm King's Thunder, and was like, I love a lot of the story. I love a lot of the elements. I hate the way they lay out things, and I want to put it in my world. So I've shuffled around everything in terms of spaces and where things are. I've added a whole bunch of different political stuff that's pertaining to my world and all of the different guilds and all of the different organizations that could have an impact, and completely changed the format. So I completely cut out the whole first act of the campaign, the first arc. Maybe the first act, and then adapted what a lot of people call the sandbox section. I don't know if you're familiar with Storm King's Thunder at all, but the way that they format it is they start with like a really, like your typical start D&D, you get a little bit of the story, like you have like a really awesome arc, there's goblins, you save a city. Yeah. It's awesome. And then they have like a really cool giant raid on a city section. And I was like, that's cool. I love that. And they give you 3 options for different cities. And I was like, I don't want to just run one of them. I'm going to run all of them. And so I cold opened my characters, and this was their like one-on-one session 0 kind of. And I did 1 group of 1, or 2 groups of 1 and 1 group of 2, and ran all of them. And then the whole next part of Storm King's Thunder is just a free-for-all sandbox. And there's no direction, really, on the giant quest at all. And one of my players has actually played Storm King's Thunder, and he was like, we played 50 sessions, and I didn't get anywhere close to where we got. Where we are now, mind you, at session... They got to the part that I'm talking about, like the next part in the campaign, at like session 16, maybe. So... 50 sessions, and most people don't even like get to that. And then the other complaint that I have with Storm King's Thunder is that they like have you select one giant lord, and I'm like, this is a giant campaign. You don't get to select one, you do them all. So those are like some of the differences that I'm doing, and obviously integrating story beats and everything. But I love that it's done, because then the things that I'm working on are the world building. And that's what I'm homebrewing and collaborating with my characters and what story that they want to tell. And then also, because of the pre-written aspect of it, I'm not making as many maps. I'm not worrying about encounter building. Well, I'm worrying about encounter balancing. But I'm not worrying about encounter building, and I'm working on my next campaign. And so that was really fun. And it was a really cool, like, selecting that made a world of a difference. And I've been really liking it.
Very cool. To work back on that first and just sort of touch on the points, really awesome to see. And that's something I encourage. I think every GM can encourage their newbie GMs or those who are looking for a recap or a refresh. Always work with your players to integrate their backstory into the world and sort of shape the world along with them. I think that's great that you're doing that. Also putting a good spin on a pre-written module, just or something that you can actually sort of shape into something that you enjoy or something you have the sort of new vision for. I just can't get over the fact that this sort of the conception of the world or the Rise of Ordning and sort of this actual play was, I'm going to build the foundation of what the next generation is going to experience. And there was a little message that you said in the beginning, which is I know that my children are going to enjoy TTRPGs. I think we've talked about this before. I have a little human, loves D&D, loves dice, has his own collection. He's only 3. So it is, our passions becomes their life for a bit. And of course they'll get to choose what they like later on. But for early stages, the stuff you introduce them is what they enjoy.
Absolutely. So. And one of my first homebrew campaigns I ran was actually for a group of children at a theater company that I worked for. It was
Oh.
for one of my best friends, her younger brother, and her niece and nephew, and then a really good like family friend. The dad played with us and his 2 children. And so like watching these, I think the youngest one was 9 when she started. And she started by playing like somebody's pet familiar, and then eventually grew into her own character. And so like watching them learn and grow and expand, and the fact that it's like a teaching opportunity, you're teaching world building, you're teaching storytelling, you're teaching character development, you're teaching how to solve problems and collaborate and work together. So it's a really fun and interesting teaching development there. And so I was like, I know that I want my children to have this experience and for their friends to have this experience and to be the home where people come and hang out. And so like, what can I provide them that I'm passionate about and love? So yeah, but like, as you were saying, the kids see what the parents model and they start working on that, and then they eventually grow and expand on that. So I'm very excited.
Well, when it comes to the actual play and the stories that you're currently telling, I know, and you know, you can't have a D&D game with just one person. So how did you find your players?
So I was very selective with my players. I have the fortune that I've been playing with many people for years. I know that that is something that not a lot of people have that privilege of. And some of them, like, we've completed campaigns, plural, together. So it's phenomenal, and I'm very, very blessed. But I'm also blessed to have a community that kind of opens up and finds new people and new players all the time. So we've had a few people that have moved in and out, just differences of opinions and everything. But whenever somebody moves, it always opens a door for somebody who fits the group a little bit better. And so I've played with quite a few people who are phenomenal. And I selected players from a huge group, a huge pool that didn't even know that they were up for it, you know? Like, they didn't even know I was thinking about it. I didn't have them audition or anything. And went, who's going to help me tell the story that I want to tell? So I thought first about the theming for the campaign. And I thought about it, and I was like, I want this to be a very serious, possibly world-ending campaign. While there may be comedic moments, I don't want there to be comedy. I do not want any comedy-based characters. I want characters who probably have probably have a bit of trauma, that we're going to be exploring a lot of really serious topics. Like, my starting soon screen has trigger warnings on it. Like, a lot of really serious topics. And so who has that ability and who has the level of roleplay available to handle that? So I selected people for a lot of their level of roleplay and the characters that they've built. And then also, one player was very specifically selected because I knew that if Storm King's Thunder is not balanced, it is horribly unbalanced for the levels. Like, there was a meteor swarm in that was 110% going to go off. A meteor swarm trap in a temple that they explore at level 8.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's. I see where some alterations
I
can
lied.
be made.
Level 7. Level 7. So there's no, granted, someone could argue there's not 100% a chance that it goes off, but
yeah,
like,
there's moments where as a GM you look out and you go, you know what? Am I making something that's enjoyable and challenging, or am I just making a meat grinder at this point?
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm not a meat grinder DM at all. Combat has definitely been my biggest thing that I've grown as a DM. But I picked a player who I was like, phenomenal at combat. I need at least one who's really, really good at combat who is going to help with that. So, and he does do a great job with storytelling and with dynamic characters. But so I was selecting players, and I made a group that I knew would work well together, and a group that pulls things out of it. So 2 of the other people who I selected who are really, really great, both of them are decent at combat. They're not like bad. It's not what I'm saying, but like, they're phenomenal at storytelling and RP, and they're also really good at pulling story out of that player because I know that they've worked together in that way. So but I knew that I wanted a group of 4, and I knew who I wanted right away because of the story I wanted to tell. And then I also knew that having a group of 4 would give me the opportunity to rotate through some of those other players that I considered into arcs that fit their playstyle better. So that they can bring a character that fits their playstyle a little bit better. So if I had had different themes for the campaign, I would have selected completely new players.
That's fair. You mentioned this a few times, and that was your GMing experience. Did you graduate from a player seat to be a GM, or were you just always destined to be a GM at this point?
Nope.
You went went deep into the waters of the GMing and went right behind the table. Got it.
My old friend group, who I don't even talk to any of them anymore, but my old friend group from a past life wanted to play D&D, and somebody bought Lost Mines of Phandelver, and we're like, here, you run it, Zari. And I was like, okay. And I ran it. We got halfway through. Everybody lost interest. And I hated the story and went, I'm going to do something different. And so I started running a whole bunch of series of like one-shots. I was playing kind of halfway at a table with a different DM with some of the same people. And then I went, no, I want to tell a full story. None of my friends are really interested in that. And so I'm going to turn to online. And so I found a group that needed a DM and was open to doing something homebrew, and I started.
Very cool. When it comes to, there's this interesting concept I like to talk about, which is most people within the TTRPG industry, especially GMs, come from like a creative background, or at least have a creative interest. You know, we're writing, we're, you know, voice acting, we're making maps, we're making encounters, you know, role play moments. And that comes from a love of storytelling. Oh, there goes that. And there's this extra layer that we all experience when it comes to actual plays, because you're not only just telling a story that could be told to a table offline. You are adding an extra layer of content in front of it. You know, making sure the lighting's okay, camera's okay, props, whatever it may be. There's a sort of idea that obviously there's a love of storytelling, but then there's a love of content creation. Did you have interest in content creation prior to all this, or did this sort of like was your introduction to it?
So, yes and no. So, I didn't start content creation until after So the group that I started playing with was interested in streaming it. Now, granted, when I started DMing, one of the other players was streaming, and we were streaming to like maybe 4 people, maybe 2 people-ish at the beginning. And I was like, oh, streaming sounds fun. I'm interacting now. So now I'm getting involved in Twitch. Now I'm seeing how all the things are done like as the GM, because as a GM, you have to like help with writing all of the different stuff. You have to help with like, what does it look like, whether or not you're the one who's actually streaming. And so as I got involved in Twitch, I was encouraged separately to start streaming for gaming. And so that whole thing started. And so I didn't even consider streaming D&D until after several things changed in our group and we were no longer streaming it for like almost a year. And I was like, I want to stream this last arc. And so I started integrating that into my content and streamed the whole last arc of my campaign. They were like level 20. It was really fun. People were kind of interested in it because most people don't see like level 20 TTRPG 5e specifically content. And so then I was like, okay, now I'm going to work on my stuff and start building. And so I started streaming a bunch of playtesting for my mini campaigns that are now available for people to play. And so it kind of was a very slow jump into streaming and putting stuff up on YouTube. And now only in the last like 6 months have I started turning it into clips and going on TikTok and going on YouTube Shorts. So that is very, very new for me.
Very cool. It's this extra layer that we have to sort of add to ourselves, and there always comes a sort of a level of frustration. Is there anything? What's the hardest thing in your opinion? You think? What do you think the hardest thing is about running an actual play?
I think that varies. depending on the content creator and the DM. So I think that everybody has a different flavor in how they go about it. I've been meeting and hanging out with a whole bunch of phenomenal TTRPG content creators. And mine personally is that I hate editing. Absolutely hate
Oh my god.
editing. I am very fortunate that my fiance is an editor. So we don't edit a lot of my actual play. I just click start and I click stop, and that's it. Like, that's what goes on YouTube, and that's what gets turned into clips. But my fiance edits all of our podcast stuff that goes up on YouTube as well, and edits some gaming stuff for me too. But that is like my weak point. I would say that my other weak point is mainly just like in DMing style, but I've had to train myself on what I call the back end of things, the things that most people like don't necessarily see or think to see about turning your TTRPG experiences into content, is the how to set up OBS, how to make things look pretty. Do you get art? How do you cast different videos to the screens? And so I'm very fortunate that I had that experience from streaming in general. And then I'm a very crafty person, creative person, so I use Canva for everything. Things that Canva shouldn't be used for, I use for. So
Hey, if it works, it works, you know?
I know, you should not use Canva as a video editor, and I use it to create all of my starting soon screens, all of my like BRB screens, totally video editing. Now, if you threw me on an actual video editor, would not know what I was doing.
I mean, it's the whole Batman Bane thing. It's like, I grew up in this sort of dark tunnel for the longest time. I know how to work the magic for what is given to me. When it comes to your games, because I very much meet most GMs have this sort of mentality that, especially actual play GMs, that the production and enjoyment of both the players, the GM, and the audience is kind of in mind. And that kind of accounts for a lot of flexibility. Sometimes there are some rules where you can be like, you know what, for the story's sake, I'll allow it. But with that in mind, with sort of rules being kind of flexible when they need to be, is there a rule at your table that is written in stone?
So when I started GMing, as I like mentioned earlier, I jumped right into things, and I did not know all the rules. To this day, I probably still don't know all the rules, and I've been GMing since like 2017. So like the fact that it's been 9 years, 8 years, and I still don't. I'm very much a rule of cool. How does the story work? Although I do acknowledge that you need rules in order to run combat, in order to do things. So I've gotten good at that stuff. But something that's always written in stone is what one of my friends calls Rule 0. And the rule that's written in stone is that the GM always has the final say. So, like, I will bend and shake most rules. Although I try to remain really consistent. So if I rule it one way at the beginning of the campaign and then it comes up later, I will absolutely stick with what I said. Even if I don't remember what I said and a player reminds me, I'll be like, yeah, that's probably true. But that comes from building a player table that you trust implicitly. But my rule that I would say never changes is that I always have the final.
No, that's fair. Yeah, that prevents individuals who are trying to either weasel their way out of a situation. I've experienced that a few times where it's mainly from a user or a player who's like, hey, I don't want this bad consequence to go off. What can I do to weasel my way off? I'm like, sometimes consequences have to happen. And honestly, that's the spice of a game, is
absolutely
something going horrible.
And I've been fortunate enough that, like, as I said, I have a group of players that I trust. And I've DM'd for people who I don't necessarily trust or who are new. So I have, like, wide range of experience there. Ran a couple of pay-to-play games, and absolutely. Sometimes you just don't know who's at your table, and that's okay. That's part of the setting up your table rules, consent forms, etc. But most of the time, especially when it comes to things that I stream or things that go up on actual play, it will always be a group of people who I've at least played with once before and who I know that I can trust at a table. so that you don't have any of those friction points on camera, because that's not necessarily cool for the audience to see. Or if it is, you use it as a teaching experience, which is a whole different.
That's fair, yeah. Speaking of which, since you've run so many games, and I know there are variants, and every game obviously has, in the story you're trying to tell, whether it's a one-shot or a full campaign and a session in that, everything has its own kind of, it requires its own little timeline. Everything has its own little length. But in your own personal opinion, and if you had to choose to just sort of make everything kind of uniformed, what would be the perfect session length?
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
2.5 to 3 hours. Yeah. So, and that's partially because most of the time people can only play in evenings, and it just works out better, especially to deal with time zones. I played with people in multiple different time zones. It just seems to be the sweet spot of like when your people in a different earlier time zone get home from work, and when your people in the later time zone need to go to bed because they have to get up. So 2.5 to 3 hours. That, and also I have ADHD, and I can't sit still for more than like an hour and a half. And so that's like
perfect break time.
Session 1, break. Session part of session 2, done. And it's beautiful. So
that's so smart. Yeah. Good bite-sized chunks. That's good for everyone,
Yeah, that, and also that's my preference. I'm also a Packs a Punch DM. So like if I'm doing a lot of story stuff, it's going to be really emotional and really like you want some time to mentally process on that. And then same thing, especially for this campaign, it's really the sweet spot because the combat's intense. It can be intense, mind you. Although my players have been really good at evading combat.
I mean, they're meeting meteor swarms, so
yeah.
It's gonna be intense.
Fighting giants at level 5. So yeah, my barbarian, they all start at level 5. My barbarian's like first session was waves upon waves of like the giant and then like ogres and goblins and stuff, like waves of enemies. And I was like, you should not be able to handle this, but you're doing great.
Good for your players.
Oh yeah.
Storytelling differs from GM to GM. Some stories are told in arcs, collection of small, of sessions, a few chunks of that, or one continuously long session and storyline that just goes into a straight line. And of course, there's that odd mission to mission situation where it doesn't really connect too heavily, but people keep going to the back, same HQ or like town, and go out and sort of deal with problems like that. Is there a arc or moment in the Rise of Ordning that really has stuck with you, and is there a preference of storytelling?
So my preference of storytelling that I'm the most experienced with, I'm also a writer. I'm working on my debut novel right now. That's a goal of this year, is to finally get it done and get an editor and all of that stuff. So my preference of writing is definitely overarching story. And you might have like arc moments, but everything will eventually come back to that story. And that's how I typically do full campaigns. So even if you have little arcs or little moments or character moments come in here and there, eventually it'll all make sense. And I use a lot of foreshadowing intentionally, and I use a lot of some of those literary elements because I have experience with it and I love using it. But with my mini campaigns, this has been a new experience in the arc to arc story. So kind of fully ending things or leading into the next mini campaign maybe. So there might be like a 2-parter. But that was like a new experience. But for Rise of the Ordning, it is definitely my typical storytelling style. And all of it will eventually come into play, but it is very completely overarching as you would get in like a book or a trilogy of books, so on and so forth. But there are moments where you're like, yeah, okay, this story arc is done. But you might get moments from different characters that pop up as they're responding to what's happening that will eventually come into play later in the campaign as well.
Very cool. Is there a moment in Rise of the Ordning that has like stuck with you? Like a moment of heroics, or maybe a sad moment, or something of betrayal, something that made the players feel something?
Yes, I know exactly what my moment is. And this moment, mind you, was something completely not planned. This was the characters responding to something that happened. A huge theme of Rise of the Ordning is fate. It is like, what is your fate that is written in the stars? I use a lot of celestial themes in all of my stuff. That's just who I am as a person. What is your fate that's written in the stars, and do you have the authority to change it? And who determines your fate? So I have 2 warlocks in my campaign. I have a divination wizard. And so they, like, I gave that theme. I was like, this is the theme. And a lot of them created characters based around. And one of my favorite moments was the divination wizard had gotten like they had met, I think I'm going to say this right, a Colotl? The celestial, like, snake thing.
Oh, yeah, like Quetzalcoatl. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I probably am not saying it right. Thank you. But they met one of those, and they talked to the divination wizard, because they can only speak to good aligned creatures. Or at least that's like what's written in Storm King's Thunder. I don't know if that's actual lore or not.
You're the DM. You tell us.
I was like, it's what I say. Yeah. And so this creature, as she's examining all of the characters, can only speak to 2 of them. And I don't play with a lot of alignment stuff because I do believe alignments grow and change as characters do. But in this moment, I asked them, and this amazing celestial creature looks at their souls and can tell, and says something about one of the warlock characters to the divination wizard, like, his soul is not his own. And the divination wizard had a conversation up on a high mountain under, like, the stars, and it's beautiful out, and there's, like, all of these really cool northern lights going on, and they had this, like, intense moment where she, like, reaches out and touches the warlock and can fully see, has like a whole vision of what his heart looks like and what his soul looks like, and the red ribbon that is tightly tied around his heart, which is like something that we're playing on with his character in terms of vision stuff. And it was completely improvised. And like in the end, I said that they fell asleep under a different celestial body in the sky. And it was just really interesting to play with a lot of those themes and be able to give tidbits of this warlock story to the divination wizard in a very fate visiony way without completely story dumping all of his information, because he can't talk about it.
That's incredible.
And so that's probably one of my favorite moments so far, just because it was like an interaction between 2 characters that was so sweet, and it drives to the main theme that I was like deciding on for the campaign, and it just made me really happy. And it was also just like so pretty and visionary, and like all the themes that I was pulling from. So when I was talking earlier about music and silence, I cut the music completely during that.
Oh, nice. Drive it all home.
It was intentional. It's not even for that. It was an intentional decision, because this character is a bard as well. He's a warlock bard. And his patron, whenever she speaks to him, it is completely silent. He can hear nothing. And so he wants to fill the world with music, and unintentionally constantly hums when nervous because he hates the silence. And so, like, when you cut the music and it's absolutely silent, and I didn't even, like, fully say much to, the player picked up on it. The wizard picked up on it. I didn't say, like, too much to her, and she, like, totally picked up on it. And then also, in retaliation, the patron did send a necrotic pulse, and it full-on would have killed the character just based on what she rolled. I would have perma-killed him. Because he failed his saving throw. Not intentional, mind you. I just picked a random number and went for it, and the dice were telling a story, and the divination wizard had rolled a 20 for her portent that day and swapped a natural 20 with it, so she legitimately saved his life. I would have perma-killed him, and did I want to? No, but it would have been an interesting story to tell. But I like what the dice did there, too. It was so cool.
That's such an animated moment, because there's so much. The way you described it is that there's so much in terms of like the background imagery, the importance behind it, and sort of the subtext that kind of overlaps everything. That's incredible. That's an incredible moment. I've heard people talk about like moments that are heroic, bring a town, killing a dragon, whatever it may be. But having kind of this quiet, impactful, personalized moment between characters, I think is an incredible thing that you guys at home could go watch. I'm assuming it's probably it's within the actual place there for the internet to enjoy, which I should say. We're going to call it there first. So thank you so much, Zari, for joining me. And honestly, for sharing your adventures with me and the world and the internet to enjoy. Where can people find Rise of the Ordning?
So before I do, I will say one fun, not heroic moment is they did get chased by an ancient blue dragon. And then were pissed at me because I didn't let them get away. So that's a not heroic moment. That was really fun there. So that was in the last session that just went up.
It's fresh in the mind. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we stream on Twitch at Zari the Muse, which is my personal channel. And then it gets posted on the Muse's Mythos YouTube channel for the full length. But if you're a clip person, you prefer to just get the story through clips, I'm both on TikTok and Instagram, and then also post shorts on YouTube too.
Incredible. Well, thank you again for joining me, Zari, and for everyone here at home. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.